Oh, that's a good cup of coffee. Some mornings, any cup of coffee is a good cup of coffee, right? All right. Good morning and welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve. It is Saturday, May 14th, 2022, and we've got things to talk about this morning. So I'm just going to invite you to put on the brakes, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation. And here we are. Yes, indeed. It is, as I said before, I'll say it again. It's Saturday, May 14th, 2022. Welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve. I, of course, am Steve. And if you are joining live, just make sure that you're saying hello and joining us in the chat today. I see Carissa is out there. Kathy Garlick is out there. Brenda Durnell is out there. Jay Zetterval, Rick Venturi. All right. It's about to become a real party now, I can see. Welcome. Thank you for being here. If you are tuning in later and watching this recorded, you can still be a part of the conversation. And please make sure throughout your time on here that you're letting us know you tune in. Take part in the conversation. Couple of quick updates for you, but I'll tell you, I'll just be honest, I'm having one of those mornings where I feel scattered and kind of, is the word discombobulated? Is that an actual word? It's a word that I think I grew up hearing, but you probably know what I mean by that. It's just where you feel a bit scattered and not quite all together. First of all, we just bought a house here in Spokane. Everything happened very quickly. A month ago, we had just had our offer accepted. We saw the house on one day. We visited it. It had just gone on the market. We walked through the next day, made the offer that same day, and had the offer accepted that evening. And then, of course, in the interim, we've gone through all the process of all the stuff that goes on, the negotiation, renegotiation about various pieces and going through closing. Everything happened in about 3.5 weeks. And then the people that we bought the house from had asked, and we very readily allowed that they could stay in the house for 10 extra days to get ready and get moved themselves. Wonderful older couple. Had a chance to meet them this last week. Fantastic people. But they, as of day before yesterday, were out of the house. So we've been in there kind of getting things prepped. And then next week, toward the middle end of next week, all our stuff gets moved in. And then we're there. So, yeah, you'll definitely see all of that happening too. But we were over there for a full day yesterday doing what I could only refer to as demo. Yesterday was kind of a demo day, some built-in stuff that we don't want in there, can't use in there, that the previous owners didn't want. But there was like a huge desk that was built into the wall. It wasn't necessarily designed that way, but that's how it had been for years. And it was a bear to take out, and some shelves that had to be taken out. So I was already tired and got home last night, and I realized I really hadn't fully prepped for this morning. I was trying to rush to get things set up that I usually set up, and then got up this morning and just still dragging. So there's that sort of mental and physical thing that happens sometimes. So not that you care, but I'm aware of it. So hi, Alan, I see you there. And Kim Baker. And let's see, Kim, where is your greeting? Because I need to see your opening greeting. Good meowing. Thank you. I've hissed you. Thank you, Kim. Let's see who else is out here. If I haven't said hello to you yet, make sure you say hi, even if you've already said it, so I can make sure I say hello. And talk about some special days here before I get too further congratulations. Thank you, Kim. All right, so special days coming up this week. First of all, today, May 14th, is Dance Like a Chicken Day. I know that you all need to know. Remember the chicken dance? Any of you ever do things at parties or in camp where everybody had to do the chicken dance and then you'd speed it up as you went along? Carissa, my daughter Carissa, was one of the champions of being able to do the chicken dance at hyper speed. At least she used to be able to. I don't know if she still can. But yeah, the chicken dance. So Dance Like a Chicken Day. If you're so inclined, do that today. Winging it can be fun, Brenda says. Thank you. Let's see, tomorrow, there were a number of things I could have put in here. There were some funny things on the what are the special days calendar for May 15th. I decided to skip those. I wanted to mention just one thing tomorrow. Tomorrow is National Police Officers Memorial Day. And I didn't want to dilute that in any way with funny things that may be happening on May 15th as well. I, for one, am a huge champion, proponent, and supporter of our law enforcement officers. I have a number of friends who are currently or have been in the past law enforcement officers. Yeah, I get it. There's controversy ongoing about some things, certain individual police officers, certain practices, and I get that. And I very much a firm believer that we can continue to look to find ways to reform in law enforcement. That's not what this is about. This is to remember those police officers, those public servants, those first responders who have given their lives in the line of duty. And so I think it's just as important to take a moment and stop and recognize those people. So that's tomorrow, May 15th. And then May 17th is Pack Rat Day. Not Rat Pack Day. We're not celebrating Frank Sinatra and his cronies. We're celebrating the fact that most of us in one way or another at times are pack rats. You say, I'm not a pack rat. I get rid of everything. Believe me, you've got a drawer someplace. You've got a closet someplace. In some of our cases, we have an entire garage someplace that is full of stuff that we just can't bring ourselves to get rid of, right? I may have a use for that someday. I know I'm much more a pack rat than my wife, Carol, is. Carol is the one who will say, really, do you really need to have that? How many of those extra cords that you might have a use for someday do you really need? Right now, they're just in a box and you can't even find the one that you want. I'm a pack rat. It does. I'll tell you one thing, and many of you know this, that if you go through a move, and we've gone through a few in the last couple of years, even since the beginning of this year, that you have to face your pack. What is it? Pack rattiness, pack rattedness, pack ratification. I'm not sure which one it is. Right. Kathy's getting rid of the people she has stored in her basement. That's us. But going through a move, it forces you to at least look at stuff. You look at things and you go, oh my gosh, how did I accumulate so much in such a short amount of time? You have to make some decisions about some things. So the 17th is Pack Rat Day. The 18th is International Museum Day. And it's actually an official holiday by the, I think, International Council of Museums or something, and just encouraging people to visit museums. We were just recently on a trip to the East Coast that I think you're all aware of with grandsons Remy and Jameson. And we had an opportunity to visit some museums. And in every situation, kids sometimes go, oh, museum. Ugh. First of all, the boys didn't. Remy and Jameson did not, to their credit, ever go, really, we're going to go to a museum? They were fascinated by the things we saw, and every time we visited anything like that. And some are called museums, and some may have some other title, but they carry that same type of, you get to see certain exhibits and you get to learn things. And I always find that extremely fascinating. So that's the 18th. The other thing on the 18th of May, another thing on the 18th of May, that day in history, the major eruption in 1980 of Mount St. Helens. At the time, Carol and I lived in Portland, and we were close enough through that entire episode of the 1980, as a number of you were and are, where watching what was happening on and around Mount St. Helens was very relevant. The folks that we live with, our in-laws, brother and sister-in-law, Alan and Kathy, lived in Spokane at the time, and were in Portland when that happened. We were together, and they were then trying to get back to Spokane. And if you're familiar at all with that major eruption on May 18th, 1980, the extensive smoke and ash and debris from that eruption went east, and much of it landed in eastern Washington, including Spokane and roadways trying to get to Spokane. So we've talked recently about remember that weekend. Yeah, so that's May 18th. I also want to wish a happy birthday today to Remy. we just had a chance a little while ago to get on a video call and wish Remy a happy 12th birthday. Hard to believe. We just did this trip with Remy and Jameson. Jameson's birthday was right after we got back. He just turned 11. And Remy today turns 12. And I mean, it's just still so easy for me to see those boys as babies, as toddlers, as preschoolers, and just to see them growing up to be such amazing young men. So I know we already said it, and I don't think Remy's on here. They had other things to do, but happy birthday, Remy. And then May 18th, I said there were several things on that day. And Brandon Garlick celebrating a birthday on May 18th as well, my nephew. So happy birthday to Brandon. I don't think he's Casey. Okay, Casey Fowler's birthday is tomorrow. Thank you, because I was going to ask, what are the other days that that I may have missed? I kind of got in a rush this morning to fill in some of these blanks, so I didn't go out and do some of the looking that I normally look. If you have a special day this week, a birthday, an anniversary, your bar mitzvah, anything like that we should be recognizing on here, put it in the chat so that we can celebrate along with you. And if you have a special day coming up in the remainder of May or as we get into June and you want to send me that information by private message or email, please do. Hi, Carla. And again, if I have not yet said hello to you, make sure that you catch my attention. And Kathy Garlick says, Brandon is much older than 12. Yes, he is. Aren't we all? Yes. So, yeah, again, if you have a special day or if I missed something in there, please remind us in the chat. Yeah, I love looking. Sometimes you just see me smile spontaneously. It's because I'm trying to look at and catch up on some of the comments that are being made here. All right, today's topic was one I thought about for a while, and it was really in a way kind of a selfish one, because I recognized as I was putting this together and throughout the week as I was putting up little promo slides on Facebook about this topic, I thought some people are going to go, not for me. That's fine. I think that's probably true on any given week. I'm probably introducing topics that there are people going, really? No, not interested. I'm okay with that. But I'm calling today's topic, Take a Hike. It's kind of about, walking as I don't know if lifestyle is the right word, but walking or hiking as an activity. And look, most of us have to walk sometimes to get from a point A to a point B, even if it's just getting up out of a chair to go into the kitchen or go to the bathroom. And I get that. And I also am aware that there's some people who have mobility issues and they may rarely or never actually be able to walk. I have friends who are wheelchair users 100% of the time. They don't walk. And at the same time, I think we have a tendency to mistakenly classify this type of activity as only happening on our feet. And we're going to talk mostly about that today, certainly. But I know people who enjoy many of the same activities of whether it's taking a walk through a neighborhood, whether it's going for your exercise in the mall, whether it's going on a nice finished trail in a park someplace. And I even know some people who take challenge trails and do it utilizing wheelchairs or other means. And so I don't restrict this kind of a topic to simply saying you have to put one foot in front of the other. But I do want to focus on that somewhat. I've always been a person who enjoys going for a walk, but I have to be perfectly honest and admit I'm not always really consistent with it. We've done it. Carol and I have done that together at times in different locations, and primarily have just walked our neighborhood, which I think can be kind of fun too, because oftentimes we live in a neighborhood, we live in an area, and we drive to the grocery store, we commute someplace, and we don't really even see what's around us. There is that literal and figurative stopping to smell the roses. And there's just something about getting out and going for a walk, even in your neighborhood, that gives you an entirely different perspective on the neighborhood. And by the way, how many different times in doing that we have either encountered a neighbor we already knew but just hadn't had a chance to chat with recently, or met somebody new along the way, even if it's just briefly talking to somebody who's out working in their yard or whatever that might be. So I think that there are benefits physically, and I think also just emotionally, that come with taking a walk. And I'm curious about how you do that. We're talking about trying to get back into that as we've done some of that here with Carol's brother, Alan. He had some routes in this neighborhood, and we've been trying to get out and walk, and with just interruptions between our own trip back east for 2 weeks, are being in the process of getting ready for this move. And even sometimes the weather can be a factor. That's another thing I want to get feedback on, is if you're a walker, if you're a hiker, and we're going to also talk about, I know some of you on here have done things where you not only, maybe take a walk in your neighborhood. Now, for people like, I'm thinking about Rick and Carla, who I know are on here, their neighborhood is more wilderness than what many of us would encounter if we were even finding a trail out in the park someplace. They live in an area where going for a walk, there are some roads and there are some paths, but often going for a walk for them is really out and out in the middle of the wilderness, trail hiking. Some of you will go places, travel to places away from home, drive to a place that you love. Mentioned Mount St. Helens, and I think about prior to the 1980 eruptions, and now even again since, in areas like that where there would be Boy Scout camps, scouting camps, and trails to hike, and different places to explore. And Brenda, I know, I remember seeing things that you and your sisters and nieces and daughters have done, some things, as if I'm recollecting accurately, where you have gone to some places that you like to go and do some like hiking trips. Some people put it together with a camping trip. Some people will actually plan ahead of time and set some specific multi-day hikes that they're going to take. I know others that will just do it spontaneously. We've done it spontaneously, but I started to say that since we've moved here, we're kind of trying to figure how else can we do this. A few weeks ago with my brother-in-law, Alan, his grandson, his and Kathy's grandson was over here, and we decided we would walk. There's a river walk just right down the hill from where they live, where we live, and some cool, mostly paved trails that go along the river. But you see ducks and you see wildlife, and it's just, you're hearing the sound of the river. And there are places along there where you're kind of leaving the river itself and moving onto some more dirt trails, and you're in the trees, and you listen to the sound of different birds and the woodpecker up in the tree, and this just various things like that. That again, you don't encounter those things. You certainly don't encounter them in the same way if you're driving in a car along a road that follows a similar route, right? So I'm curious from you, first of all, are you a person who likes to walk, or have you done that in the past? What are your walking preferences? Are you a walk in my neighborhood kind of person? Are you I prefer to go take my walks in the mall just to get my exercise, or I do it on a treadmill? How does weather affect your walking if you're a regular walker? And is it something that you just do for a physical activity? Is it something that you have found to be healthy from an emotional standpoint? Sometimes just getting the hormones going in the right way, getting the body chemistry going in the right way affects mood, and being out there where it's not just driving in the car. So I do want to hear from you. I'm looking to be inspired, and I'm looking to see if some of you can maybe inspire each other. Again, looking at, Brenda's mentioning the all girls camp out, no boys allowed. I love that. And then, and Carla, I know you guys have done this in any weather, and you combine it, Carla. I know that you guys have combined, I think Brenda, your family has done this as well, and probably others out here, combined doing stuff where you're a little more out in the wilderness with things like picking mushrooms, finding and picking mushrooms, or doing other things. I know people who get out and actually study and look for edible plants of various kinds, and that's part of the walking. So I'm not saying I'm looking to do all of those things, or that I'm in a position where something like that is necessarily close at hand, but I do like to walk. And I want to try to make it a more consistent thing. I used to actually love to run. I was never like if you watched me run, you would say ducks can run better than you. But when I was a little bit younger and my joints were still allowing me to, I liked to run. I know there's some people who kind of do, I don't know if this is part of what you call circuit training, but there are people who will do run walks where you run part of the way, you walk part of the way. I know people who have done walking, speed walking as both a competition and an activity, or walking, there's a formal 5K or 10K or even a half marathon or marathon that includes runners and walkers, and people have entered those and trained for those. If you're a wilderness walker, is it all do you look for fairly even ground? Do you look for more challenged situations where the elevations change and maybe there's even some climbing or even some off-trail walking that goes on? So I want to hear from you about what you do. Rick mentioning Dad started walking every day on advice from his doctor after his quadruple bypass at age 63, and he made it to 86. I do think that as we get older, there are some things, I'm well aware now as I'm approaching age 66, I'm aware that there are certainly some things physically that I used to do that I either can't do at all or they take an entirely different effort. I'm still able to walk pretty easily. I probably do get tired a little bit quicker, probably do get winded a little bit quicker, but I can still do it. And I still like to do it, and I still want to do it. So what is that for you? What are the things that, and by the way, I know I sometimes, because I'm looking at the camera, I'm looking at my notes, I don't always see or respond to all your comments here. I do go back and read them later. Yeah, Brenda saying running hurts. Some of us used to be, I know some of you on here, I was never a competitive runner in high school. I was never part of the track and field team or did any kind of things like that. When I could run, I enjoyed run. By the way, some people don't enjoy running. They say I don't like it. Brenda mentioning running hurts. And I think it would hurt me now too. But back in the day, to me, that was along the same lines as walking. It was running outdoors was my favorite thing, running through my neighborhood. And it was similar in that you would encounter people, you would encounter sights, sounds, smells along the way. And smells is one, by the way. If you're out walking, you smell the flowers, you smell nature. Sometimes you smell the exhaust of the vehicles if you're in an urban or even suburban setting. But I think that it engages the senses in a different way. And so I know this probably isn't a real, inspiring topic for everybody, but hey, I'm using it to learn from you, and to hopefully inspire you a bit. I do think that there are some things that we can all take away from this, and I would be interested in finding out from you. What's interesting? We lived in Pleasanton, California, for 15 years, and we did go for walks in our neighborhood. There were some fantastic semi-wilderness trails on the ridge. Just 2 miles away, you could drive and park in a parking lot and take these hikes up into the hills around Pleasanton. And there were other places along the way with an easy driving distance. I'm not positive, but I don't think we ever did that. I don't think we ever took advantage of that while we were there. We did get to the point in the last few months that we were living in Pleasanton where there was a park nearby that we could drive to most easily. And it was really a cool circuit around this park, and you'd see different things. Again, you'd watch, you could see some of the soccer games going on. You'd encounter people and say hi. There were other people out taking walks. One day we were out there and there were a group of men playing cricket in the park. Not something, in the United States you necessarily see every day, everywhere you are. And so there's some interesting things. The other thing is, I guess the last piece that I was going to bring up and I wanted to bring up is if you walk alone, and is that your preference? If you go for walks, is that your solitary time? And if so, do you prefer to put on some headphones or earbuds and listen to music or listen to an Audible book, or, what do you do during that time? Is that a get into your senses time? Some people use it for a meditation or devotional time. Some people use it just to listen to music to keep their pace up. Some people use music that's designed to walk to, where it picks up your pace as you go and then cools you down at the end, etc. When Carol and I would walk together, we had a couple of different routines. One was we would sometimes put in our earbuds and coordinate our music, so we're listening to the same thing at the same time, and use that to pace ourselves, but also we'd comment on the music sometimes that we were listening to. Other times we just took the earbuds out. Still do this when we're walking with my brother-in-law Alan. That we just use the time. Sometimes we're just quiet, and other times it's a good opportunity to talk about things, um, ask questions, bring up topics. Carol and I have always enjoyed, whether we're on a long drive or going for a walk or just sitting in the living room together, to talk about things, topics, things that we're thinking about, vision, dreams, ideas, what ifs, planning things. And I'm wondering, is that something, if you walk with someone or with others, what is that time like? What do you do with that time? Um, Kathy saying, I prefer to walk alone and listen to something. And, I'm curious about what other people do, because sometimes I will go, oh, hadn't thought about that. Or, yeah, I can see how that would be helpful, and just wanting to take advantage of that time. So, anyway, thanks for taking this little walk with me through this topic. I hope it has been something that inspires you. Maybe it's made you feel like, yeah, I can get out and take a walk today. Um, I think I kind of addressed this. Carla said earlier that she puts on her rain gear. We live now, when we were in California, sometimes the worst that you would deal with is maybe it's a little cooler outside, or it was raining. Yeah, California does get rain. We're now living in Spokane, Washington, which has very definite seasons. And sometimes, as we're discovering, those seasons can overlap. We were getting ready to leave for our trip on Good Friday in April, mid-April, just before Easter, and it snowed here the day that we were getting ready to leave, and then melted off pretty quickly. Portland has recently gotten some uncharacteristic, unprecedented late snow. And there are times during the winter, I can remember even as a runner, that it was like, yeah, this is going to be a treadmill day. What do you do when the weather is really, maybe you were planning, maybe you're a consistent walker, and you have to deal with things like, inclement weather, or weather conditions that may not even be safe. Maybe it's, a thunder and lightning storm, and you're saying, don't really be out walking because you don't really want to become a lightning rod today. But I'm curious about how you do some of those things. But yeah, California can also be too hot to walk a lot of the year. That was the other thing that Carol and I dealt with there. That can happen here in Spokane. Once we start to get into the summer months, it can get up into the high 90s or over 100. And you can be dealing with even an early morning walk where the temperature is already getting up to a point where you got to be careful, make sure you're hydrated. And that's another thing I think is worth talking about. How do you prep for and stay healthy in preparation for and during a walk? Do you take water with you? Do you hydrate along the way? I find, particularly as I get older, if I'm going for a longer walk and I either have tried to pre-hydrate effectively, part of that is you have to be consistent about how you hydrate. But if I'm taking water with me, one of the things is I better also, if I'm going to be out for a while walking, I better know that I'm walking someplace where there's a public restroom of some sort along the route, because that may become a necessity too. So I'm curious about how you handle hydration and other issues that may occur during your walks. But anyway, those are all interesting things to talk about. Let me talk to you a little bit about what's coming up in the near future. I mentioned, I think last week, that I was working on some different guests. I know we don't need to have guests every week. I typically don't, but I've got some topics that I'm lining up that I'm looking for, in some cases securing guests. And next week is not going to be a guest week. Next week's topic is actually one I was originally planning for Memorial Day weekend, but because of some availability of other people and topics, next week we're going to do a conversation about Arlington National Cemetery. We were just back east. We visited it. I have visited Arlington several times, and I'm inspired every time. And I learn new things about Arlington National Cemetery each time I visit. If you have never been there before, I hope that talking about it next week will give you some ideas about why it's an extraordinary place to visit. If you have, I want to hear your comments about what has spoken to you and inspired you there. I'll talk a little bit next week about our most recent trip, talk about why I think Arlington Cemetery, National Cemetery, is an important place in our culture and our history. and some facts about it that maybe you didn't know. We'll have some trivia as well. And then we've got some guests coming up in the following weeks and some topics that I think you'll find interesting. I'm not going to take the time to talk about it now because we're already at time. I want to be sensitive to your Saturday. Plus, Carol and I need to get over to the house today and do some more work in preparation for moving in. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Thank you for taking the time to join us and to be a part of the Coffee Breaks with Steve family. I've been talking a lot and haven't had that much beverage. I also, Shalane wasn't on here today. I know Rick and others will say everybody drinks. So that was the last big one for this particular episode. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the season that we are in right now. And as I always do, I just want to remind you to find a way to make a difference in your world this week. Thank you. God bless you. Have a great week.